Thank you for joining us for this webinar, College Recruiting 101, an introduction to the college recruiting process for CVCA football. This is something we've been working on to try to get out into your hands as a resource so that you can navigate this world of college football recruiting if that's a goal for you and your family. And we want to share some things with you about how we go about this process at CVCA, but also just some good, solid general information about this process, no matter where it takes place. To get us started, I want to give some credit and give some thanks to start off. Many of the materials that I'm going to share throughout this presentation, are items that are learned from some of these individuals. Some are items that we're sharing some of their materials, and we'll reference those. But also, this is just a list of folks that when it comes to the topic of recruiting, college recruiting for the high school athlete, the high school parent, the high school coach, are just a list of folks that I've learned a ton from. So first up is Larry Karras, Don Montgomery, and Jeff Witovich at the University of Mount Union. Under Coach Karras' leadership, Coach Monty, Coach Witovich, folks that recruited me to Mount Union as a player and just learned a ton from as far as the game, but also this whole process. And both while there as a player, but also getting a chance to pick some of their brains since then on this side of things. Second name there on the list is Bill Conley, formerly the recruiting coordinator at Ohio State University for a number of years. He's also the former head football coach at Ohio Dominican University. I worked with Bill at Ohio State when I was a graduate assistant, and then worked for Bill at Ohio Dominican University, a Division II school in Columbus, Ohio. And Bill's essentially, one of the godfathers, if you will, of modern day, college football recruiting, and just learned so much on this topic from him. And thankful, for that. And we'll be sharing some things that comes from his wisdom throughout this webinar. Also, a friend, Darren Waters, fellow high school coach at Watkins Memorial High School in Pataskala, Ohio, currently. Darren was a coach for me, especially as a young coach, that was just a great example, someone I looked up to, someone I learned a lot from about how to get yourself organized for these type of things, and just having a heart for high school players and trying to help them accomplish their goals. Jeff DeRuyter is formerly of IMG Academy. Jeff was an alum of a previous high school where I coached, and quite literally just from some phone calls with him while he was in Florida and I was in the Chicago area, as well as some emailing and correspondence back and forth. Jeff's a guy that really brought me up to speed, I'd say, within the last 10 years about some of the current modern practices of recruiting, as he would be heavily involved at IMG with the recruiting process and as a liaison to all the college coaches that came down there to IMG. And so Jeff's a guy that, I didn't get to interact with him in person, but just as an alum of that school and through some great conversation, had a great chance to learn from him. Last on this list is an individual that I've never met personally, but if you're a high school coach, you've probably seen some of his materials. He does a great job just resourcing high school coaches via social media and things of that nature, and has put a ton of material out on this topic. And he's a guy that we'll give credit to for some of the charts and different things you might see in this presentation. Items that he's put out there for everybody that this helps us to organize our not just our thoughts and our philosophy with these things, but also our process. And so thankful for all he's done to resource high school coaches, and have definitely learned a ton from him. And he'll recognize some things if you were to see this. So what I want to start with is just to review why it is that you might be here. This is a webinar that it's designed for definitely high school athletes. Our CVCA football players can watch this. Other athletes can learn from it. But this is geared in a lot of ways towards parents. And so that language there in that first checklist is, that maybe you're here because your son has been a regular varsity starter in our football program. That's our standard, for us to put together a recruiting profile for a CVCA player. Is that would be an automatic trigger. That if they're a regular varsity starter, we'll put those profiles together. Second reason you might be here is your son's been awarded all conference, all district and/or All-State due to his on-the-field performance. And that's call that a top performer standard. When it comes to college recruiting and getting recruited, it's not just that you're present on a varsity field and might have some film. The idea of getting recruited is that you're also being recruited as a top performer. And there's a difference there, and we'll talk more about that. But you also may be here, your son maybe hasn't accomplished either of those first two yet, but does have a goal of playing college football one day. And you just like to learn more about the process, and maybe that's what's brought you here. And then the last thing you're going to see on the screen here would be a reason I would say to not be here. Okay, so if you do honest assessment, this would be true of you. This would be a reason to hit pause on this webinar and not move forward. And my recommendation would be if it's a dream of yours to have a son play college football one day, and maybe that's gotten out of balance, maybe it's more your goal than it is his, I encourage you to hit pause here and, focus on helping him see one of those first three items come to fruition. In particular, making sure that this is a goal of his. Because there's a lot that goes into this that if it's a parent, if it's a overzealous dad is, kind of honestly living vicariously through their son, and it's more their goals, that can end up being a train wreck really quickly. So, like I said, I'm going to count on that maybe not many folks in that boat hopping on this webinar. But if honest assessment, that's true, definitely recommend that you hit pause and focus on those first three. So here's the basic outline. The goals of this webinar, goals of College Football Recruiting 101 here for our folks is want to address these following basics of recruiting. It's broken down into 4 key categories. So college football realities, we'll share on what's it take to play college football, like if this is going to actually happen, what's that take, give you some information on that. Also want to help you understand some of the terms and timelines when it comes to college football recruiting specifically. There is a lexicon of language and calendars and things of that nature, and I want to help you understand those things. And then last but not least, give both player and parent a college football recruiting checklist. What are some things that I can do? What's the process I should follow, even looking at it year by year? Hey, if I'm a freshman, what can I do to contribute to this goal versus if I'm a senior? What does this look like as well? And so we'll dive into some of those topics as well. All right, so first up here, we'll start with the college football realities. You can see some of the breakdown there of what we'll get into, but let me just go and pull some of that up on the next slide. First thing you understand with college football recruiting is that college football is big business. You see some of the revenue numbers listed there, but college football as a whole topped $3.4 billion for the first time in 2013. And it's just bottom line is it's one of the most lucrative sports, college or professional, in North America. You can see Coach Pomazek is a source there, and in the notes you'll be able to click on some of these links with the presentation to find out more information about that. But here's the bottom line: with this being big business, a warning is that similar to youth sports, don't be scammed into thinking that your son is better than he is. All right, many people out there attempting to pay their mortgage and more by tapping into the business side of college recruiting. And the bottom line is what happens is they end up capitalizing on inexperienced, overzealous parents. When it comes to high school football and it comes to college football recruiting, work through the high school coach. Right? When I say almost all of recruiting should be free, it's really that college football recruiting should be free. The only reason I say almost is that there are some appropriate, college camps that an athlete can go to. Some of those on invite by a college coach, or on their own volition. But those are not super expensive and should be a minimum cost. But the bottom line is there's a lot going on there with the business side of this. And just a warning there: don't be scammed. You should not be paying for college recruiting. paying for a college recruiting service, especially after getting the information we're sharing in this webinar here, would be a waste of money. Second, here's a quote. This is from a top recruiting analyst in the country, and just all of his experience working with parents and programs and players throughout the country is something he likes to share, and I'll share who this is after I read the quote. But it says, "Parents, see your child in the best light. Understand college and universities do not. They're looking for reasons not to offer a scholarship. They're not looking to find a way to offer them." It says, "The tried and true method in winning football games is to collect the biggest, fastest, strongest, and brightest, and then you have a chance. Just because your child plays at a high level in high school does not mean they have what it takes to play in college, much less receive a scholarship to do so. Recruiting is the lifeblood of college football, and if a coach does not recruit the best and brightest players, they will not meet the administration's expectations of winning. If they don't win, they will have to find another way to provide for their family." And that's Clint Cosgrove, one of the most respected scouting experts in the country. In the past, has worked for Rivals. I think he might have switched over from Rivals, but highly respected individual in this field, and some great wisdom from him. That a reminder that this is big business. There's a lot on the line when it comes to college coaches and their recruiting of athletes, and so they are looking for the best, and particularly if it comes to scholarship money. You'll see how uncommon it is for scholarship money to be handed out in the whole scope of high school football, as we look at some more data later on in the webinar. Part of this big business is some newer items. You've probably heard about some of this, but the whole topic of name, image, and likeness, and the opportunity for college athletes to earn money from their name, from their image, from their likeness. This mostly applies to Division I schools, or FBS schools as they're called. But an increasing amount of schools are now communicating plans and policies on this, even at the Division II and Division III level at this point. And so what I have linked in the presentation that you can click on to read more about is just a couple resources to help you understand exactly what this is and what's going on with it. The University of Toledo has a great resource center. I'm going to go ahead and click on that here so you can see that as an example. But it's just a great resource center where they, this is really to serve the athletes at their university, but it is public. And so you can see there's some links and things that you can go to see what their policies are. You can see some things about what legally is going on. This would be in Ohio with Toledo, but also just some resources for student athletes to be able to click through and get to. And so there are many other you could look up and find other resources like that at other schools, but particularly in Ohio, I've really been impressed with what Toledo provides there online as a resource center with this. And then that second link is also just some information about, some of the NIL happenings and potential, even with Division II and Division III. So if your son were to go into college and this topic comes up, each school will have its own policies, each school will have its own approach to this if they're participating. And so that's a link to be able to find some more information about that. But the bottom line is that directly ties into, a financial aspect of the game, and, athletes being able to make money off their name, image, and likeness is just a new layer to the cake. So I encourage you to do your research on that and ask college coaches if you interact with them, what that looks like. Another example here of just, realities of college football is, these are the numbers I was talking about. College football is an exclusive club. It's just a little bit over 6% of the 1.1 million high school boys who play football will play college football at any level. So this is the total number at all levels. You can see the breakdown underneath this, that it's 3% will receive some kind of scholarship, grant, or aid for playing football in college. Okay, so you essentially cut that number in half if you're talking about getting scholarship money as a football player. And then the number is, roughly 1% of all high school football players, that 1.1 million, will receive a full ride FBS football scholarship. So this is an extremely exclusive club. This can really help you as you help your son if it is a goal, to set realistic goals. And we're going to give you a breakdown in a little bit about how to talk about specifics with that, some of the measurables. What do the different levels of football look like? Not everything is about a full ride. There are other opportunities to play the game that don't involve as much financial aid. But kind of going back to what Clint Cosgrove brought up is it's important to understand the numbers on this and the realities. And truly, as you get assessment on your son about what he's like as a player, including the measurables as far as his height, his speed, not just his playing ability, will help you to kind of see what targets you might realistically be able to shoot at. And once again, for essentially one out of 100 high school football players is possibly looking at getting some kind of full ride scholarship. But there's plenty of opportunities for others, and you see that at the bottom here is 80% of scholarships, grants, financial aid is given out at the Division II, Division III, or NAI junior college level. All right, so being realistic, but also staying positive is that hey, it's not D1 or bust. All right, as a young man talks about playing college football, it doesn't have to just be playing for schools that you see on television. There's a lot of great opportunity that's out there that's not D1. All right, so be encouraged, fellas. It's not D1 or bust. A new aspect to this exclusive club portion of these realities is the transfer portal. All right, so college players can now transfer from school to school without penalty. And this is for the first time in the history of the sport. It's a new rule since 2021. And so the bottom line is, a reality is college coaches are increasingly recruiting the portal for experienced players, and doing that even before they recruit high school players. And so what a current phenomenon that's happening, a current reality, is that this is resulting in less scholarship opportunities for high school players. And to be honest with you, if you put yourself in the college coach's shoes, it's a wise decision a lot of times, right? I got a young man that was at a rival school in our conference that was put on the all-conference team, but he's from our state and had a desire to move back home, and is going to transfer, and he can play for us right away, and he's a proven college player at that position. And do I invest in scholarship money and take that kid on and be able to coach him for the next couple or few years? Or do I take a chance on a high school player that looks great as a high school player, but still hasn't even stepped foot on a college campus? And so, but these are realities that, college coaches are recruiting the portal more and more, which is resulting at times in less opportunities for high school players, particularly at the scholarship level. And so there's a link in the presentation here. I'm going to click on this one as well so you can see, but this comes from Mark Porter. Mark's one of the most respected experts in this in the country. He does serve exclusively Ohio kids at scoutingohio.com, and this offers a tremendous battery of all kinds of tools and resources for high school athletes at his website. But these were numbers that he gave out last year. Some of these will update as we go, but you could see some of the history here in the state of Ohio when it comes to those FBS full ride scholarship players. And you can see, coming out of COVID and things of that nature, certainly there was a drop in the number of commits. But this was information he gave out last year. And like I said, he may have updated this at this point. Hopefully we see some trending start going in a different direction. But, this is all just a picture. This is an illustration of, the impact that, a lot of things, including the portal, Division I athletes having extended eligibility because of COVID, being able to stick around. And so therefore, less scholarships opening up as far as that cycle. But these are things just to keep in mind as far as, the transfer portal is having an impact on college football recruiting. Another aspect of realities is just important to understand, how many schools are there out there that have college football? Not every university has college football. And so, this map is really just an image, but if you look to the left there of the map, you can see the breakdown. There's 130 schools out there that can, quote unquote, give full ride scholarships as a football player. Below that's Division I AA or FCS. There's about 125 schools in that category. All the way down to, you see Division III. I think that number is probably actually a little more than 250 as we speak. But that all adds up, though. It's over 800 colleges have football teams. And so, once again, shared a lot of realities here. But, if you look at that total number as well, there are many places for you as a high school football player for your dream to come true. And we'll show you ways to, what you need to work on specifically here in a few minutes, depending on what level that is of football. But it is an exclusive club, but seeing that number of 800 should also be encouraging. There might be an opportunity out there for you if you become a top performer on a varsity high school football field. And stuff here at CVCA that we can help you with as well. You can see at the bottom the breakdown for Ohio schools. There's 40 colleges in Ohio that offer football. We got 8 FBS schools, 2 FCS, and you can see there's more Division III schools than anything in the state of Ohio. So even in our state, there's a lot of just broad opportunity for guys to be able to play college football. If you're not familiar with some of what was just shared there as far as levels, this kind of gives you a breakdown of what the different divisions of football, what it is they have to work with when it comes to recruiting. Typically, a Division I FBS school has 85 full ride scholarships to hand out, and those are full ride scholarships only. They don't get to divide those, split those up. They essentially have those to hand out in full. Whereas if you look at FCS and Division II schools, there's numbers attached there, but those would be different versions of partial. And there being some ability, and it's a little different at each level, for them to offer some money for football in combination with maybe academic money to be able to put a pretty good package together. But it does include potential football money, but usually partial. And then that usually not being a full ride with football money for those levels. And then the Division III level is not permitted to give athletic scholarships. But guys are going to play college football in Division III, that's where I played. There is academic money, grant money, other financial aid options, just as a student, that are available. And depending on the school and if it's a right fit for you, might be able to have a decent package if your grades are high enough. The NAIA is a separate organization from the NCAA. It's very similar to NCAA Division II. They recruit, a similar athlete depending on the position as NCAA Division II. But you can see what their numbers are there. They have essentially 24 partial scholarships to work with as they form their roster and go out recruiting kids. And then the last there on the right is, the Junior College Association. This is a national association. Something that's not on here is California, as an example, has their own Junior College Association with a lot of football teams out that way. But typically a lot of things with tuition and whatnot out there are tied to in-state residency and whatnot. So I don't have the information on this slide, but, you could look those up, I guess, if you wanted to. But with these junior colleges that have football, these are mostly out west and down south. And so a lot of junior college football in Iowa, in Kansas, and then, like I said, in some states down south. And they have a variety of, depending on the school, different partial scholarships that they can hand out. But that's junior college. And so that's just some of the differences in terms of what it is they have to offer. And then therefore, as you get assessed as a player and are able to figure out, what level it is maybe you could play at, if you're part of that 6% that gets to do any of this, it gives you an idea what you're working with, what the schools are